Hello everyone, welcome back to Omegon 2 Electric Boogaloo. Today we are going to be responding to an article by Vice. So yes, not a response video for a change, what a time to be alive. I originally saw this by Count Dibula, a former YouTuber, fellow YouTuber, he's very busy, who'd retweeted Vice's tweet with an article with, "This isn't about shaming people for their sexual orientation," which is a quote. Yes, it is. Vice tweeted, "This isn't about shaming people for their sexual orientation, it's about reflecting on the factors that might shape your attractions." Now, if you've been on YouTube as long as I have, you will undoubtedly remember the videos, the old glory days of the anti-SJW, SJW, feminist, anti-feminist videos with a YouTuber called Riley Dennis, who made videos about sexual preferences, indicating that if you were straight and or white, pretty much just both, if you did not want to breed with everyone of every race on this planet, you were in some way racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, and every other phobic you can think of. It, in the eyes of Riley Dennis and many people back then, apparently some to this day, is bigoted to have a preference. The view should always be, your preferences are yours and yours alone. It is not other people's right, they are not entitled to intimate times with you if the person on the other end does not want you. If they don't find you attractive, it ain't happening, is it? Under Dibula's tweet, "Blind technician, oh wow, look at the comments, that's actually quite nice to see." Now I want to save those comments to the end of the video, because I think it's important to acknowledge when there's blowback. Vice get plenty of it, akin to that of BuzzFeed and TED Talk. We're instead going to go straight to the article, titled "What's Wrong with the No Trans Dating Preference Debate?" Everyone is entitled to their sexual preferences, but we should be able to talk about how societal values affect them. This feels like an article worth our time and totally not a waste of time. Okay, let's talk about no trans dating preferences, a recent fixation in sexual politics that often ends up in transphobic and abusive conversations. Take, for example, a recent video by LGBTQ commentators Ariel Scarcella and Blair White, which argued that lesbians are not transphobic if they are only attracted to cisgender women, which is 100% correct. It is not transphobic to not want to have a biologically male sexual partner if your interest is not in biologically male sexual partners. You can all say, we should all just welcome whatever it is, attractiveness is something else, it's not just the bits. There's a point there really is. But an individual's freedom to choose what they want in them or what they want to use in another person is important. It's like you shouldn't hide any STDs you have from a potential sexual partner if you have one. You have to be open, transparent, and honest. That honesty is what you build relationships on in the first place, is it not? Trans feminists and YouTube personalities such as Riley Dennis, and Contrapoints have been arguing for some time that a lack of sexual attraction to trans folks is to some degree shaped by societal prejudices and stereotypes. As a PhD student in sociology and a trans feminist, I'm concerned about how the debate has misrepresented trans critics and led to attacks on trans feminists and activists. In the case of Riley Dennis, a lot of it came down to disingenuous interpretations of the statistics and facts. Contrapoints, there are some points there. Of course prejudices shape things, but it doesn't change an individual's choice. Societal change is not quick, it is gradual. The attraction debate has been popping up on and off over the last few years, several in fact, but seems to have been kicked off by a video posted by Dennis called "Your Dating Preferences Are Discriminatory." The very video I mentioned at the start. I hadn't even read the article when I mentioned it, which explored how social inequalities and oppression shape our attractiveness to marginalized peoples. You could argue certainly back 20-30 years there was a taboo aspect that really helped. As society has become more open, equal, and free, other marginalized groups' taboo aspects have been explored instead. But with the vast majority of people, and it is a vast majority, this argument is very much a minority argument. It really is a minority of a minority, because the majority accept the boundaries. Whether change can actually, let's say, welcome the idea of foregoing gender entirely, like Jeffrey Marsh wants to do with children, instead of saying boys and girls, just nothing. You're just kids. Congratulations. have that with adults as well, which may well save a whole lot of problems concerning pronouns and identities, wouldn't it, if we just went, oi you, instead of, hello, my name is blah blah, and my gender pronouns are blah 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 blah. And then before someone says, you are speaking down about gender and identity, no, I was using generic their words because it saved me having to go through a whole plethora of list of identities because I don't care about them. Hi, I really don't. In Riley Dennis's video, the video is concluded with the quote, because these dating preferences are ultimately harmful to people who don't fit into your box of what a conventionally attractive person looks like, it makes people feel isolated, alone, and unwanted to hear that they are universally unattractive to people. Now this can be applied to many walks of life. In the context of what you're using it for, it is an attempt to guilt people into what they don't want. Yeah, that's what it is. It's very much an appeal to emotion. Trying to seem rational on a grander scale then actually is a good argument, but in the context of this, it won't work. Scarcella and Blair White twisted the terms of this argument to read as an assault on the rights of lesbians and cis women, an attack on the lesbian community by SJW authoritarians. This isn't entirely surprising as Blair White's YouTube channel routinely resorts to offensive conservative arguments that belittle and misrepresent the feminist community. You'll find that on YouTube, if you've been here long enough, they've been doing that to themselves for about a decade now. Not Blair White. All those arguments, the feminist community, they were annihilated. They were annihilated because they accepted intersectional feminism and then started fighting themselves. When people pointed out the flaws in all their logic, the bedroom feminists especially, they got beaten off the internet. The article continues by talking about the blowback Riley got because of that video, stating that this struck a nerve in far-right circles. I'm not far-right, but it struck a nerve with me because it was disingenuous, which led to a harassment campaign against Riley, it's called criticism actually, carried out by an angry cyber mob of thousands of users systematically downvoting her videos. It's called fuck around and find out. Say stupid things, and stupid things will follow. This isn't rocket science, people. Hurtful content, comments, and venomous response videos. I did one. That video got over 50,000 dislikes. I don't care about the misgendering part, it's a deflection from the key thing here. The arguments even presented within that video are terrible. I was considering doing an essay-like video on Riley Dennis's career. I really was. So I have that video saved. A lot of the older content was actually removed though, so finding some of it has proven quite tricky. Many of the critiques of Riley's arguments allege that her video accused cisgender folks of having sexual identities that were transphobic. Such an argument would understandably irritate a lot of people. Of course, this is not what Riley was arguing, but it bloody well was. In the grand catalogue of Riley's videos, that was a core problem. Your identity needs to be malleable, according to Riley. It needs to be in a state of flux. It needs to welcome open heart and legs to everything to Riley. It came across as rubbish, and your article interpretation of the criticism is pedantic, mildly, horrendously out of context of the opposition as well. Many responded because they saw what Riley said and thought, fam, you do realise what you've just said, right? Even if you could argue it to be cherry picking because, oh, it's a response video and you can only use 30 seconds at most before it's not fair use, which means if you do 31 seconds, you'd have got the full context. You're cherry picking yourself. The article claims that this in turn has riled TERFs, which has heightened the already intense transphobic harassment practiced over online spaces like YouTube and Twitter. But back to Blair and Scarcella. They argue that sexuality is defined entirely by biological factors, which implies that it is entirely static. They propose that sexuality and gender are not at all influenced by society, despite the commonly accepted fact that homophobia and transphobia are culturally motivated belief systems. You do realise though that they're not the same thing, right? One's sexuality and what one is apparently afraid of are not. You aren't the smartest, right? If one's biological, one's societal, it's not. I feel like I'm talking to an absolute brick wall here. Many trans feminists would argue that this sense of disgust isn't a given in our predetermined sexual identities. It is a flexible frame of mind that can be changed through critical self-reflection, spoken with no level of irony from somebody who no doubt has no idea how to introspect. There are plenty of people, including heterosexual men and lesbian women, who might find themselves surprisingly attracted to a trans woman. You do realise this does not prove your point, right? It is not as much of a point as you might make it out to be. There are going to be people who are attracted, some people who are going to be more welcoming, inclusive, some people who don't care if they're dating a trans woman. Obviously, these are factors. Some will find attractive because they think, oh my god, that woman is hot. The penis part might well cause a bit of a problem. Let me repeat, I'm not saying that it is imperative to be attracted to trans women. I'm arguing that your attraction is shaped by preconceived notions and stereotypes of transgender folks. So no, I am not shaming you because of your sexual orientation. I am merely asking you to critically reflect on the factors that might shape your attractions. Well, look at that, we found the quote 2/3 of the way down the article. Asking the viewers, readers, to critically reflect on factors that might shape their attractions sounds like a lot of effort. People spend their lifetime discovering who they really are. The idea of critically reflecting implies that they need to unlearn their bias. Another turn of phrase used by people like yourself. I guess the question now is, why should they do that? Why should they add more stress to their life to do that when they found something they're attracted to, someone they're attracted to? If they're still looking, then of course you should reflect on these things. But you're asserting that everyone needs to do this, and you really are asserting it. You're also assuming it is based on stereotypes of transgender people. That's not the case either. It really isn't. Again, this is not as much of a big point as you think it is. You just want it to be so you can write a ridiculously long article talking about how many of the arguments are super reductive, how complicated gender and sexuality are on a shifting identity continuum. Shocker. When things get more complicated, so does your issue as well. But I think you also don't agree with the idea that a lot of this is biological, and that is referenced in one paragraph, quite handily in fact. You finish the article by talking about queer liberation, and that gender and sexuality aren't simply something that comes from biological imperative. And this is where I drop, gender is not biological, biological sex is biological. Gender has always been societal. It's why for centuries, children weren't called boy or girl, they were called girl. That's not even a lie, that is historically fact. Biological sex is immutable, you cannot change it. Sexuality, that one causes a lot of contention. It really does, whether it is biological or choice. That I refuse to get into. But the idea that someone having a sexuality, a preference, in some way being bigoted, all you've done is jump on the bandwagon of Riley Dennis being right because everyone cherry-picked, and if you don't, you're a right-wing nutter. You do realize how bad that comes across, right? Not everyone who's on the right is wrong. You know that's true. You just want them to be wrong because you believe the left is progress. I never get involved in left or right. I don't align myself on purpose with anything. An issue should be dealt with as an issue itself. I don't need politics to be right. Insert the pedantic prick in my comments who says, but by doing this, shut the fuck up. Alright, shut up. I'm going to link the article down below if you're interested, by the way, folks. Before we finish, I had said we'd look at the comments. I forgot about that. Jeff Varner. There was a time when GLAAD would have stepped in here and put a stop to the homophobia in this article. Never let it see the light of day. It was their mission. Now, in my opinion, they're behind the articles like this. Homosexuality demonized and dismissed. Why? Ben DG. Soon, we may start having to invent labels for homosexuals who are only attracted to same biologically born gender and those who are also attracted to trans same gender. FFS. Let's just let people be attracted to who they want to be attracted to. They don't have to justify it to anyone. Arch Lobster. You don't think sexual orientation might shape someone's attraction? LOL. Bianca. Interesting how this article not once mentions the fact that Blair is trans herself. Like, you had 5 years to add that, and that's another interesting point. Riley Dennis has been dead on YouTube for years. Not dead as a person, the channel, the interactions, the activity on social media. Because Vice had tweeted this out on the 12th of March 2023. Right. Well, the article itself is from the 23rd of February 2018. You had 5 years to update it and you didn't. And you tweeted it out now as if it's some kind of recent thing because the arguments are happening again, so you drag an old article out. How tragic is that? For those extra clicks, none of which you'll get from me because the article's archived.